Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's video. We're going to have a look at the Japanese model for both the month ahead and the 3 monthly forecast. Both charts have updated from the JMA model, so it's a real JMA Friday today. Not only have we got the month ahead forecast, we've also got the 3 monthly forecast as well, which will be taking us up to December. Can you believe the end of 2014? What a warm year it's been. Now, before I get on with the Japanese update, just want to mention the advertising this video ads on my pages at GazWeathers.com. Hit play on the video ad. You'll be helping to support GazWeathers.com. Essentially, it pays me to sit here and talk to you via the website, so if you can get involved and hit play on the video ad, you'll be helping to support GazWeathers. Thanks so much for doing that. So let's start off with the 1 monthly forecast first of all from the Japanese model. We've got 500 millibar height anomaly charts here broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us from the 11th to the 18th of September, so from yesterday through to next Thursday. And the first thing to say, of course, is I want to have to do these charts at British Isles is upside down with just there. So it's fairly easy to work out what's going on because blue is extrapolating to low pressure, orange and red is extrapolating to high pressure. So we've obviously got a big area of above average height sitting to the northeast of the British Isles, just there. Got a trough of low pressure out in the Atlantic. So it's basically a case of let battle commence. The ridge is the driving force, it is the driving factor really for that particular week, this coming week. Going to be quite a bit of high pressure around. Very gradually, I think, as we get towards the end of next week, starting to get eroded more and more from the southwest, perhaps. But overall, quite a bit of dry weather still coming up for the coming week, and pretty warm as well, because the winds are in generally from a southerly or southeasterly direction with that. Now, going through to the next week period, this one takes us from the 18th to the 25th of September. It's still the same sort of idea, really, but what's happening is that the ridge is very, very gradually receding to the east. So instead of being just to the northeast and really building into British Isles, it's actually being pushed back a little bit in towards central parts of Europe and western Russia, and it's allowing this trough to begin to exert more of an influence coming in from the Atlantic. So it's still the same idea. Essentially, we've got the ridge up to the east and northeast, we've got the trough out to west and the southwest, but I think it's a little bit more unsettled with that trough beginning to pull in. Winds, by the way, are still coming generally from a southerly southeasterly direction, so it will still be pretty warm, just turning a little bit more unsettled probably. And then moving through to the 3rd and 4th weeks, this takes us from the end of September into the start of October, 29th of September to the 9th of October. It's basically the idea still that that ridge is gradually receding away. It looks like it'll take a very long time to start losing its influence, but very gradually we start to exert an Atlantic influence in, with the low pressure becoming more typically placed, the below average height setting up to the south of Greenland, around Iceland, and the winds are generally going from sort of a southerly direction to more of a westerly, really. So probably temperatures are going back nearer to normal as we get through to the end of September and the start of October. We begin to see more sort of an Atlantic influence, really. Not desperately unsettled, always more unsettled up to the north and the northwest probably with that. But it's just the idea that we're reverting to slightly more of a westerly flow, I think, as we get through to the very end of September and the start of October. So let's go on and have a look at the next 3 monthly periods. So we're going to start off with the Northern Hemisphere view of the next 3 months from the Japan in a moment. So starting off with the Northern Hemisphere 500 millibar height anomaly view for October. And this is what it's seen for October. There's that ridge again up to the northeast, just there, receding away very gradually through the course of the month. And the below average heights from the Atlantic are strengthening really through October. So it's seen low pressure gradually taking over off the Atlantic, quite a westerly flow coming in. That could be quite a strong flow off the Atlantic coming in. So it is actually seeing, I think, quite an unsettled October. Once we get this high pressure that we've got with us now broken down into the start of October, we could really start to revert the westerlies in, and it could be a more unsettled month than we've been used to for quite some time as we get through to October. Moving through to November, it's seeing the trough sitting more or less over top of the country. Actually, so that could be quite an unsettled month as well. There's low pressure in there over most of northern Europe, actually, the British Isles is included. Now, we're hinting at little bits of northern blocking here up around Greenland, so that's quite interesting because we could feed some colder air perhaps into that trough. So we may see temperatures dropping a little bit as we get through to November. We're under a trough of low pressure. That could be maybe risk of some wintry potential even for northern parts of the country. I wouldn't go overboard. It's not a severely cold scene, I don't think, because the trough for that would have to be centred more to the east of the country, so we dig those northerly winds in. Nevertheless, I think with this sort of amount of northern blocking being signalled around Greenland, we could, and down into Newfoundland, we could just start to feed in some colder air into that trough at time, particularly if it goes on later on into the month. So maybe November, perhaps look out for that to be a slightly cooler month. And then getting through to December, finally, this is the Northern Hemisphere view from the Japanese model for December. Well, the idea then, we're still hinting at northern blocking around Greenland, but we've also got this ridge setting up down to the south, and I think we're strengthening the westerlies again in December. There's quite a deep trough forming off the coast of America. This is the eastern seaboard just here. What's happening really, it's a job to work it out from that. What's happening is that we're digging very cold air, I think, down into much of the states there, and we're strengthening the trough off the eastern seaboard. Consequently, we're strengthening the jet stream as well, running it across the Atlantic into the British Isles. That is quite a similar pattern, don't want to say it, but it's quite a similar pattern to what we had last winter, actually. Quite a strong jet stream, well, a very strong jet stream, with a deep trough forming off the eastern coast of the states, being fed really by cold air, but feeding down into much of the United States. The only difference is that we are hinting there at some northern blocking around Greenland, so it could allow perhaps for some colder air to dig in maybe at times from the north, but overall I think that's a relatively mild and potentially quite stormy and unsettled signal there for December. So this is sort of the mid-latitude view. You can't really see the northern latitude from this, but we'll start off with the 500 millibar flow chart for October first of all. Just the confirmation really, but we are looking at a more unsettled month there. I think we've got the low pressure below, which heights out to the west, a ridge there in the central part of the Atlantic. I think we're running the jet stream through like that. That is a relatively unsettled signal for October. The temperature signal, and remember we're on the extreme right hand side of this as you're looking at it just there. The temperature signal for October is a little bit warmer than average to above average. The wind arrows, not sure if you can make that out, but wind arrows are westerly, indicating quite an Atlantic driven month. And finally the precipitation forecast, not really surprising with a trough that deep in the Atlantic, but we are expecting a wetter than average month in those blue curves. So it does all those things will get a bit of a move on in terms of autumn. Once we've broken down this high pressure that is dominating this September, we should start to see autumn properly beginning to set in. Now as we go through into November, remember this is the month where we've got the trough more or less over the top of the country. So we've got a trough of low pressure there. We've got this ridging out around Newfoundland. That does extend up to Greenland as well. I think we could engrain some colder air into that trough at times, particularly if we keep this sort of anomaly going into the second half of the month. Although it isn't, have to emphasise, it isn't a particularly cold signal, and the temperature forecast does back that up because it is coming out average to slightly above average in actual fact across the country. But I think out of the 3 months, November is probably the one that could produce some colder conditions at times. Although October won't be all that warm because it's a westerly month, and a westerly month in October will basically bring you out with near normal temperatures. So I don't think October will be overly warm either. But out of the 3, I think November could be the one that produces something a little bit colder. Notice the wind arrows are a little bit more variable. You expect that under that trough of low pressure And yeah, at times, particularly on this western side of the trough, we could feed colder air into that trough. If the trough was more centred to the east of the country, it would be a better signal to bring down colder air. But nevertheless, I think we could get some cold snaps from that at times. The rainfall signal is coming out average to above average again. Not surprising, we've got a trough of low pressure over the country. It's not as wet as October, but we're still coming out on the wetter side of average. And then finally going through to December, this is the JMA forecast for December. Remember, I think we're strengthening the westerlies and the jet stream in December. We've got this trough, a deep trough forming off the eastern coast of the states, and that really enhances the jet stream, running it through there across the country. We are still hinting at a little bit of northern blocking up here, but we've also got this ridge developing down to the south, so I think that is a westerly signal really for December, and could be quite stormy as well. The temperature forecast again comes out on the warmer side of average. The wind arrows show that we're generally running the westerlies in across the Atlantic and into British Isles as well. Much windier month than you would expect. And unsurprisingly, the rainfall is becoming or is above average. It's still above average there in those blue colours once again. So that's the latest update from the Japanese model. It looks as though once we've broken down this high pressure that's been dominating September so far, autumn will get a real move on, and we're in for a different pattern altogether really for October, a much more unsettled month. So that's sort of the headline from this, that autumn is probably on the way after a very delayed start. Get through to November and December. I think for November we could be looking at some cold snaps. Not a desperate cold month, but I think out of the three valleys, but one that could produce some colder snaps at times. And then December, on the face of it, we could be really strengthening the westerlies and possibly bringing in some severe gales, bouts of heavy rain as well. A very similar, or not far away from the sort of pattern we had last winter. So if you didn't like the deluge that we had last winter with this, you're either going to hope this is wrong, or if it's right, it's only right for 1 month, and we'll change the pattern as we get beyond Christmas. So let's wait and see how it all pans out. All highly speculative. These charts are just for fun. Really, they're not to be relied upon. All seasonal or long range forecasting is experimental, but the charts are there, so might as well see what they're showing. If you enjoyed this sort of longer range update, I'll be doing a 6-monthly update with the American CFS model on Sunday, so come back for that. It's a weekend broadcast tomorrow, so come back then if you want to know what weather's going to be doing next week. It'll be pretty warm at times again, I think, and that's it for now. Thanks for watching.